Today we are going to create this digital clock which can count down and count up from whatever the number we set. Let's start with a blank project. Go to Geometry Node's workspace, add a Geometry Node modifier, call it timer. First, let's create some inputs so that we can set our time. Create integer inputs for hours, minutes and second and also set their min and max. Now I set a time here, 2 hours and 15 minutes and 13 seconds. Let's display this time using GeoNodes. In order to display any text, first we need to create a string. Here what we actually want is convert these inputs to a string. For that we can use text value to string node. Drag this our input to the value. If we directly plug this, it gives a red doodle. That's because a string is not a geometry. So to convert this string to geometry, I'm going to use text string to curve node. This will convert our string to a curve instance. In this string to curve node, we have a lot of options to change our string settings. They are all self-explanatory. We are not going to bother with them right now. Now we can change this from here. But you probably already noticed that we got a slight issue. When we go from single digit number to a double digit number, our text length is changing. But that's not how digital clocks works, right? In digital clocks, they use 2 digits to show even 1 digit number. They use 0 in front of a single digit number. So let's create that. First, we need to isolate the single digit numbers. For that, I use compare greater than or equal node. Set the value type to integer and set this b value to 10. What this does is it looks at our input and decide whether it's a greater than or equal to 10 or it is below 10. In this way, we can get a boolean output of true when it is a 2-digit number and false when it is 1-digit number. To use this result, I am going to plug it to a switch node, and since we are dealing with string, let's set the type to string. Now I drag the string to true, and for the false, we need to join this string with a 0. For that, use text join string node. Duplicate the value to string node and join these two together and drag this output to false. Now let's use this as our timer string. Now you can see it's working. We have our leading 0. Since we are dealing with a few math calculations later in this setup, it's always important to make sure that we are dealing with integers, because computers, they are always calculate numbers with decimals. So there is always a chance those decimals could screw up our timer. So let's add utilities float to integer node and send our input through that node. I set this method to float. What this does is, let's say we input a value of 0.235. This will convert it to 0 or 0.75 to 0, ignoring any decimal numbers. But if you set this to round, it will look at the float and find its closest integer. And that is not what we want. We want this to completely ignore any decimals and only output the integer. So let's set this to float. Since we have to repeat this to the other input as well, I select all these nodes and group them. Rename the input and output, and let's call this group time display. I'm going to rearrange the layout a little bit. Here you can see when I turn off the overlays, our number is gone. That's because our number does not have any solid faces. It's just a curve right now. So to fill the curve, use curves fill curve node. Let's duplicate this node group 2 times and drag the relative inputs. Now we need to join these to a single string. Use text join string node. And for this first input, I type colon. This will add a colon in between the string. And just like that, we can display any time we want. Now let's make this count up or down with the time. For that, I tried a few different methods, and the problem is that they fail to have a connection with each other. We can use the SameTime node and add the current time to each of these times and update it. That would work if we started with 000 every single time, but we want a timer that can count up and down from any time we set without creating any offsets. So the best method I found was to convert the time we input to seconds and then convert it back into hours, minutes and seconds and then display it. So to start the process, let's convert our input hours to seconds. Use the math multiply add node and multiply it from 3600 because 1 hour equals 60 minutes and 1 minute equals 60 seconds. That means 1 hour is equal to 3600 seconds. Then duplicate this and convert our minutes to second and add it to the previous value. If you have never used this node before, this is basically an alternative to using multiply node and add node respectively. Now we can add our seconds here. In this way we have converted our input time to seconds. If I use a viewer node, you can see the value we are outputting is 8109. So let's convert this back to fit our 24-hour timer. We have 8109 seconds. Divide it by 3600, we get 2 and 909 seconds remaining. Then we take this remaining and divide it by 60 to get the minutes. We get 15 minutes and 9 seconds remaining, which is exactly the time we input. This is the calculation we are going to do in Blender. Take our total seconds and divide it by 3600 and plug the result to hours input. To get the remaining, we can use the math type called Modulo. What this does is it gives us the remaining value when we divide two values. So let's use that remaining and divide it by 60 to get the minutes. Plug the output to minutes. To get the final remaining seconds, use Modulo again. To make the count up, let's add scene time to our total seconds. Now you can see it's working. To make the count down, we can change this to subtract. But since I want outside control of this, I keep this at add and multiply our scene time by -1. Now it's counting down. Here you can see we have a little issue. This is the problem that I told you about a few minutes ago. We need to make sure everything is integer. Since our scene time is a float number, let's convert it to integer. Set the type to float. And just like that, we have our timer. To finalize this, let's extract this out. Give it a name and I also set it to integer. Set the min and max to -1 and 1 respectively. Actually, I had a little bug when I tested this. Whenever I had a number like 11 or any number with 1, it shrinks our timer length. This will happen with some fonts. I tried to fix this by replacing 1 with space and 1, but it didn't work every time. Oh, looks like it's working now. But trust me, sometimes when I reopened this project, it simply didn't work. Well, whether it's working or not, it's not perfect. So to get perfect result, I used a font called Alarm Clock. It will take care of that issue. Let's add a material to the timer and quickly model a clock to place our timer. I parented the timer to the clock and gave it an emission shader. Oh, I almost forgot. In order to stop this hour value from going above 23, use Modulo node and use 24 for the second value. And also we have another problem, that is when we count down, it can go past to negative values. So for that I create a logic using compare node and check whether our time is equal or less than 0. Then use a switch node to output the result. If it is true, then the value should be 0, and if it is false, we want to keep things like before, and that will fix all the issues. So that's it for today's video, and if you are new here and you want to make cool stuff with GeoNodes, you can check out my other geometry nodes tutorial. So what do you think about today's video? Comment down below, and also if you make something using these techniques, don't forget to tag LFX. I love to see those. You can get the tutorial files from the links below, and if you like to support the channel, feel free to join our Patreon. So I hope you learned something cool, something new. I mean, that's what we like to do. We not only create stuff, we let you create with us. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to LFX Learn so you won't miss out when the next video drops. So until next time,